welcome to Clay to Canopy, the show where I attempt to make just about everything from the ground up. I get asked by my students to make a video on how to roll out a very large slab. It's basically what you would need to make the ceramic trains that I have done and other things. You know, slabs used for many different things. So today I am here on campus, and this is the slab roller that we have here. And a couple things that you want to know about the slab roller before you can roll slab is to first figure out how to adjust the height of your slab so you can determine how thick your slab is going to be. On this particular slab roller, we do that adjustment by adding or taking away these boards here, and they can just be pulled out or inserted, and you can add and stack higher ones so that when this roller feed here, this canvas goes on top, and then to operate this you will turn the crank, and when you turn the crank this giant roller will come in and squish your chunks of clay down into form a nice smooth slab. So depending on how thick you need that slab to be is going to determine how thick and how many boards you have under here. I have already tested this out and adjusted it, and to test it all I did was take a small piece of scrap clay, throw it on here, roll the wheel, and then look to see how thick my slab was. Thickness of the slab is about 3/8 of an inch, so this roller is set just perfect for that. So the next thing I'm going to do is show you how to smash a big giant chunk of clay from the bag into one long big slab. So you will need your chunk of clay, and then you also want to have some kind of board set up with your newspaper. I have here, I'm going to set that off to the side, and then your wire cutters. So the first thing I'm going to do is open up my bag of clay completely. I'm going to take my wire cutters, very carefully untangle those wire cutters. You do not want to get a kink in the wire. Now, because I'm trying to make a very big slab, I want to keep as much of this vertical as I possibly can. So the last thing I want to do is try and cut this in half and end up with the weird funky chunk that I have to, pound on to try and flatten out a little bit. So I'm going to cut on the vertical, and I'm going to cut half of this chunk just using my wire cutters. There we go. I'm going to use one chunk for now to re-put away your wire cutters. I'm just going to loop 2 times around my fingers and then take the little end and weave it through several times. This is going to keep it nice and neat, and that way you don't have any kinks in your wire when you go to store it later. Now for the fun part. This is way too big of a chunk to send through this slab roller, so I need to help it along before I do that. What I'm going to do is I am basically going to beat up and punch this slab to try and flatten it out some. But as I hammer at this slab, I'm actually going to be punching on an angle so that I can begin to squish the slab out on its sides. So it's not, just a direct force, it's kind of an angled force. If this is a little too much for you, you could certainly use a rolling pin. Maybe if you had a bad week, you could take out your aggression on this slab. You want to do this evenly, so I'm going to flip this over, do a little bit more on the other side. And then there's this method that, it's kind of like tossing a pizza that you could do, where you kind of pull and toss at the same time. This will help stretch it as well. And my goal here is just to not thin it so that it's so super thin, because I don't want it to be thinner than what I'm trying to achieve here, but just so that it's not this giant chunk on here that might mess up the slab roller, because the slab roller is running on a very thin wire under there and it's under tension. So if you put too much on here, you can pop the wire. You need to at least get it down to about halfway of what thickness that you're aiming for. The other thing to note is that the slab roller is only going to make your piece longer in a direction. It is not going to make it any wider. So when you start rolling on this and I start turning it, it's going to push my clay in this direction and make it a very long piece of clay. So you want to be aware of what you're trying to achieve as far as final dimensions go, so that you don't end up putting it in the wrong way. So for me, I want to keep this width, and I actually just want the length to go this direction. And for the projects, I want to make sure that I have at least 12 inches in width because the train car bases are going to be 12 inches, but you can determine whatever width you need for your particular project. So this looks to me that that is definitely at least 12 inches from having made this project so much. I can tell just by looking at it. And so now I'm going to leave that length this way so that it will push it this way, and that's going to become my width. But before I can turn it into the slab roller, I need to help the slab roller along a little bit more, and I'm going to do that by squishing with the palm of my hand just one of these, this side that's going to meet the slab roller first. Now, some people believe that you should throw this cloth all the way over or before you begin rolling. I really haven't found that that makes a difference. I do know that at the end, you want to make sure you throw it over before you retract, and I'll explain that in a minute. But for the part to get going, you just want to make sure that this is not tangled up under the roller and it's only folded over itself once, and then you can begin to roll. Now, just turning the crank, and it's going to meet some resistance. So you want to go fairly slow so you don't break that wire that I was talking about. There we go. And as soon as it rolls over it and it's completed, you'll feel it. The resistance will change in the wheel and you'll no longer have that, but I'm just going to keep going just to be sure. This is the part where I was saying, you know, completely fold this down now so that I can come back and unroll the roller. And now I'm going to flip this over, and there's my slab. I can now take that board. I want to try and pick this up with the least amount of handling, so it may be better for you to just get the board kind of butted up close to it so that I can just flop it on this way. And there we have it. For that project that I was talking about, it requires multiple slabs. You can then take some more newspaper, put it on top of this, and continue to stack another slab. And you can stack, 3 to 4 slabs onto one board, wrap it in plastic, and have it set up for a couple of days. I wouldn't go to more than about 4 slabs because it becomes too wet on the bottom and all of that moisture stays inside and it can become really, really heavy. So you want about, somewhere between 3 and 4 pieces of slab on each board before you put it away. And again, you want to make sure you're wrapping that in the proper plastic for storage. That's pretty much it on how to roll a giant slab. Yeah, so thanks for joining me. Hope you enjoyed this video.